We go to draw again. Hello, my name is Jersey Drozd. All the links above me, cartoonist and teaching artist. And last time on the live stream, I began painting this drawing that I did of my characters Baron von Bear, Pickles, and Taft, and the Wisps in an environment testing out the difference when I like how I encounter the difference between analog watercolor painting and watercolor painting in Clip Studio Paint, which I have an example of right here. Here's the finished drawing in Clip Studio Paint using Ray Frendon's watercolor brushes. And that took about 2 hours to do after it was flatted. So now I have this much done. This is how much I did in the last stream, which was 1 hour. So now let's see if I can finish it in another hour, so I'll at least match the time. But I also want to see how things shake out in terms of the colors that I choose. Right now I'm just throwing down some water to wet the paper on this rock before I throw the color down and wet it. The wash, rather. Still a little bit early in the morning for me. As I stream this at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, and what would it be? 7 a.m. Pacific. Somebody who watches my videos on the west coast of the United States called me out on that, and they were right to do so. I will try to remember to mention Pacific time as well. Why should I make you do the math when I'm asking you to show up for something? Darker brown in there. Which is, try to let you see what I'm doing here as I'm mixing my colors. I also, are the inks print or original? So the inks are actually, what I did is I penciled it in Clip Studio Paint, and then I printed it out onto Canson watercolor paper, cold press. And then I inked on top of the pencils, the blue pencils. I just printed it out in blue. So these are the original inks, yes. And then I scanned them back in to Clip Studio Paint. Before I started doing this version of the painting, I scanned it into Clip Studio Paint and did the digital paints, which is what I showed a moment ago. So there's the CSP version, and here is the analog version. And so I'm just doing a comparison to see which do I prefer. Do I prefer working with digital watercolors or analog watercolors? There's obviously, it shouldn't come as any surprise, there's trade-offs to both. Because when I'm analog, I think I enjoy this more. I enjoy working this way more. So like in terms of like artist experience, I think this is preferable. However, I'm losing a bit of control here. Let that dry for a minute. Do some of the other rocks. And then I have a surprise today, is that I'm going to introduce, in addition to my 12-pan tin of watercolors, I'm going to break out my watercolor crayons, which is a gift my wife gave me last year before. So these are actually crayons that you color on the image just like you would crayons, and you use water to blend it. We've all seen watercolor pencils before, right? Oh, thanks, Mark. So the watercolor crayons tend to give me a brighter color. Here's the color palette from my tin of regular watercolors. And this weekend I did a palette with my watercolor crayons. And just like the greens are brighter, the purples have a little bit more brightness and saturation to them. So I'm going to use them for some elements on here just to make some things pop. And see if that changes things for me in terms of analog watercolors versus digital watercolors. So what is this image about? This is actually, it was just something I just sort of sketched out while I was watching a webinar recently. And it was me sort of saying, I need some images to test out these tools on. So I might as well do some like studies of like what kind of environments I might expect these characters to go through if I ever do a book about them. Black in there. Have I ever tried gouache? I do have. So these two, this white and this yellow, are gouache, and so put in context. I when it comes to doing watercolor, I feel like I'm just skilled enough to sort of like get pretty close to what I want. Pardon me. And gouache is one of those. I think it's part of that frontier of like, okay, that's like another skill level up that I've not achieved yet, and I want to. Because I watch artists like Derek Kirk Kim use gouache to do illustration, and my gosh, it's just breathtaking. So I want to. I have a couple in my pan that I use every once in a while, or in my palette, whatever you call it. I don't know. But I haven't done it myself. I haven't done a lot with gouache yet, but I will. Is that a rock there? Trying to decipher my own lines. That's a rock. What do I want to do next? I want to put a little bit more shading on this big guy here. Do I find watercolor as zen as inking? I kind of do. I kind of do. I kind of like when I'm not live streaming and talking through my process, it is. I think that's one of the reasons I got hooked on it. Anybody who's been following me for a while knows that like a couple of years ago, back when I was on a bowling league, I used to do little watercolor art drops at bowling alleys. And before that, I used crayons. I was just pen and ink and like a box of Crayolas. I was trying to keep it really simple and just playful. But once I got started like getting a sense of how watercoloring works, and like, or at least like I said, to the extent that I could get it to do kind of what I wanted it to do, I started doing all my art drops at the bowling alley with watercolors, and I would forget my turn. You know, like that my teammates would be like, "Jersey, you're up. Come on," because I'd get sucked into this. Have I ever done stippling? Currently working on a comic with TV static fuzz background. I'm worried my hand is going to fall off. I have not done stippling since I was probably like in high school or college. Yeah, and probably for similar reasons. I mean, this is like I got a taste of it, and I was like, okay, that was really challenging. Let's avoid doing any stories where I have to do that. It looks cool when it's done, though. It looks awesome. Okay, I think I'm done with that rock. Break back into my blue. Do this house here. Or what's left of it. The stuff that when I took my watercolor class that my teacher Claudia taught me, like that really made this so much more accessible to me was like just little tricks like how you can pull color away. So like if I get like too dark of an area there, she's like, well, just pull it into the rest of the stuff like that. It's like, gosh darn it, I never knew that you could do that. What am I doing next? I think I want to do these plants underneath here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my green. Come on. I'm going to get my big brush for this because mixing with that little brush sucks. All right. It doesn't suck. Wait, that's strong language, Jersey. Okay, it's just, it takes longer. It's not as expedient. There you go. Precision in language. A little bit more warmth in there. See if I did it right. We got brushes clean, relatively speaking. I think what I just did here with this color mix is exactly why I'm enjoying the working on paper rather than digital for this. Because I just mixed 3 colors really quickly and relatively effortlessly. Doing that in Clip Studio Paint would require me to open up another document or maybe have some area in the margin to do that mixing on the digital canvas. Unless, if there's any Clip Studio masters out there or archons who want to help me understand how to do like advanced palette mixing in Clip Studio Paint, if there's like some secret that I just don't know about. Do I ever think of adding a soundtrack to one of my comics or my characters? Yes and yes. And actually, almost, this is hard to say, it's almost 20 years ago when I launched my first webcomic. My younger brother is a musician. And so he actually wrote theme songs for a number of my characters from a book, a graphic novel that I serialized as a webcomic first, called The Front Rebirth. And I used to use some of those songs as my background music on my live streams, but then YouTube content ID flagged them as like copyright infringement. I'm like, those songs are written for me. I'm the only person who has the copies of them, so I don't understand what your computer is hearing that it shouldn't be. I'm pretty sure that my brother was not doing derivative work, but so I stopped using them. But yeah, that was a fun. It was a fun experiment, and it was a fun project in talking through with somebody who has a different art form how to represent the idea of the character in a different medium, right? And in a way that honored the collaborators' input, because there were things that he and I just like. Well, let me put it this way. He saw things that I didn't see. I thought it was supposed to be A, and he showed me that it could be B. And when he did it, I went, oh, yeah, okay. Because guess what? I don't spend all my time thinking about music, so I don't know. I don't see it as clearly as he does. Just like how as a illustrator, part of my job sometimes is educating my clients as to what their options are. Okay. How much time have I been going? 20 minutes. So I'm guessing, Dordoys, because you asked that question, you have considered doing that for your characters. Let's do the ground there. I think I want to try to use a mintier green. Clear this out. And do you know what like, do you have like genres picked out for the different kinds of music, or would it be like all like pretty like cohesive, like sort of like a movie soundtrack with like some Wagnerian bits for to like identify which character is being referred to, or would it be like more like a mixed tape where you would have, say, like, a couple Rolling Stones songs, and then like a couple Pantera songs, and like a Joni Mitchell song, right? If this is too, nope, it needs more yellow. You've made a noise theme for. I don't know what a noise theme is. I mean, I can guess what it is, but I don't know if I'd be right. Noise music. Is that a genre of music that I'm just not aware of? Is that a type of? Forgive me. I am super not uh, articulate or fluent in talking about music or understanding it. Like I said about my brother. Thank you. Just peeking around. I'm glad that you like the painting. Doing some watercolor experimenting. Determine if I want to do digital or analog watercolors for an upcoming comics project. Playing around with my own characters. Keep the experimentation fun. The the bear. So this is from a mini comic I did for Inktober a couple years ago, and the idea is that he's a sort of a reverse Indiana Jones, in that he doesn't, like, he goes after mystical objects that have some kind of like dangerous power in them. And then he deactivates the curse on it and leaves it where it is. So he doesn't put it in a museum. He sort of like stabilizes it. I did a mini comic about him, I want to say in 2018 for Inktober. And so it's like the elevator pitch is it's like reverse Indiana Jones, Doctor Strange meets Hello Kitty. Super cute, but it's supposed to be like spooky and adventurous. So he goes to remote and dangerous places, solve mysteries of cursed and exotic objects. Also slightly inspired by, I don't know if anybody remembers, there's an old TV series called Friday the 13th. Not the movies with the hockey mask guy, but this was a series where two good-looking young people and an old guy went around trying to capture all of these dangerous cursed objects that were laid or put into the world by the old man's, I think his brother. It's slightly inspired by that idea too. Is I love this idea of like the Mystery Machine, Scooby-Doo, but instead you're dealing with demonic dolls, like actual demonic dolls. Things like that. Yeah, the antique shop one. You know what I'm talking about. Which could be like pretty spooky at times. And so it all started with this idea of like, can you do like a middle grade book that's like actually spooky and scary? And I'm like, I mean, of course you can. Goosebumps, for crying out loud, right? But then I wanted to go in like another direction where I also introduce like this sort of Indiana Jones adventure. Because like my favorite things to draw are cute things being brave and awesome, exciting action sequences. I like trying to capture movement and energy in comics because it's a static medium. It's not something where the movement is easily described. So that's the part that makes it really compelling and interesting to me. So I wanted to combine all the things I love, cute things being brave, awesome action adventure, and then also this idea of spooky, I wouldn't say horror, but spookiness is probably the best descriptor. I haven't seen that Rick and Morty, but that sounds like a funny premise for an episode. Yeah. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of. I pull away some of that green. Dordice was Baron von Bear's backstory that he was somehow affected or hurt by one of these artifacts. I am not telling because that would be spoiling if I ever get to do this book. I know his backstory and I want to tell that story someday. Hopefully, I will. But let me explain that this was a long time in developing. I mean, I've been working on various iterations of this character for, I just realized this morning, 19 years. He first appeared on the cover of a mini series that I did for Antarctic Press called PPV. EPV number 2. You can see him plain as day on in the background of the cover. So I've been thinking about him at least since 2002, and he's undergone a whole bunch of iterations. I've played around with a lot of different approaches for how to do this adventure bear. And if you look, I mean, even on my Instagram, I've posted a whole bunch of different sketches and approaches that I've tried. There was one version where he was going to be teamed up with a robot called Lord Tractorman. It was like clearly like a tractor robot, and then like a dinosaur lady. It was a very silly idea, and I don't know what the inspiration was. I don't remember anymore. That was some years ago. All right, Pickles, you're up. That's 2 red, Pickles. Why are you so red? And so these 2 characters, Pickles and Taft, actually appeared in a different mini comic that I did, not for Inktober, but just as like a sort of a playful experiment. Actually, these 2 characters actually came out of an Inktober. So Inktober was like pretty fruitful for me in terms of like generating ideas. So I did one year, I think it was 2014. I was just sketching just animal heroes. That was my theme. That was the creative restriction I put upon myself. You're going to draw animal heroes the entire month. And I did this drawing of a pig on a battle tortoise, and it got a lot of reaction from people who I admire and you know, respect. So I was like, okay, there's something to that. Keep playing with it. And then the next year, I think I did a mini comic about them. And so lately, I've just been pitching them all in the same story together. Pickles, Taft, and Bear on Bear. Oh, I missed part of her scarf. And we are 34 minutes in. I am almost done. I actually got to finish this in 2 hours. That would be wonderful. I'd be a happy person. That's too opaque. That's going to be a problem. When I start throwing down some shading on that, that's going to get pulled up. There we go. All right. Not crazy about the job I did on Pickle's face here. That lightened a bit. A little better, but have I ever seen the Hexbug Junkbot models? I don't even know what that is, Dordoise. The Hexbug Junkbot models. You say it's a model, makes me think that it's some kind of model you can construct. I will look it up. Dordoise is showing up today to like just teach me all sorts of new things. Look up noise music. Hexbug Junkbot. Whoops. It's way too dark. This is the other thing I'm kind of nervous about it, like in terms of like doing traditional watercolors, is like that moments like that where I'm like, I'm almost done, and then I trip and fall. far too opaque. Thank you. Now the Baron's staff, and then I'm going to break out my crayons. This is new territory to me, like doing like this level, like these tiny details in watercolor. It's like, well, how much should I be attentive to that? Okay. So now I'm going to pull out, it's got the trees, the mountains, and the wisps left. So I'm going to pull out my, what is it? Neocolor water soluble crayon d'Ache watercolor crayons. And I'm just going to very gently scrub around in here. Ah! Can I erase them? Let's find out. Nice, but these are really, really bright. Oh, I think I'm going to add just like a little bit of like purple, like violet to it. I put down some purple. I'm going to mix in just a little bit of violet. See how I did? I haven't used these in a while. They blend pretty good. It's so much more vibrant than the violet that I have in my watercolor palette. See if I can wash out just a little bit out of the center, just brighten up just a tiny bit. Have ever tried ASCII art? That I do. I actually know what that is. I think that's when you use different text symbols to create an image. But returns and spaces. Am I right? And the answer to that is no, I have not. It's one of those things where I chose a long time ago what I was going to focus on. That was comics. And if you could convince me there was a way to do ASCII art to make really cool comics, I'd probably give it a try. But unless it has something to do with contributing to my work as a cartoonist, I usually don't make time for it, just because there isn't that much time. As we've seen just here, comics takes an enormous amount of time to do. All right, blue, you're gonna get. I do think ASCII art looks really cool when it's done well. I remember when I was very young and I was learning basic programming language in school. We did some programs. This is how long ago it was. It was on the Commodore 64, and we did little programs where we made ASCII art out of in a game. Like you'd play a game where there was like yes or no questions, and based on like what the answer was, it would create different ASCII art. And one of them was like a bottomless pit that you fall down. It was all made of exclamation points. It was very, very rudimentary, super simple. But I was only like 11 years old, so. Do you have an example of ASCII art that you've made, Dordois, if you have tried it? I'm guessing you've tried it if you're asking me about it. Okay, so this is green, the wisp named green, and there is no way on this or any other world I'm going to be able to I'll fill in that line with this big chunky crayon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a separate sheet of paper, just stumble in a little bit of green, and just grab it from that. See, another tricky thing about doing this, I guess, like if I were to do traditional watercolor for the book, I would have to render the wisp's energy lines in with another tool besides the ink pen. I should have thought of that before I did this experiment, but that's okay. Orange. Orange, I call upon you. Each wisp has a different kind of magic, and their color corresponds to the type of magic that they possess. So, speed, cunning, wit, time, cold, gloominess. Green is life, wisdom, and health. And orange is power and joy and ferocity. Yeah, I don't know if it would either, Dodois. You could always DM it to me or email it to me. Here's the place where I wonder if some white gouache would work to like give some brightness to this. I'm not sure. Okay, how are we doing on time? I am almost at time. I gotta get these trees painted, and now. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Color mixing over here. I want these trees to be kind of purpley brown. And drat me for a fool. All right, let's get the yellow highlights on them first. Cool, I look forward to seeing it. Dordoys. Dude, the epic music kicked in because it knows that I'm up against a deadline here. I'm trying to finish this fast. All right, need some more of that color. Red too. Can I do any? Yeah. Well, I race to the finish line. Something I like to ask my friends when we get together is name something you're excited about for this week. Something you're like, ugh, it's got to be done. What am I excited about this week? I'm excited to get back to work on some RoboForce stuff that I've been letting sit because I got caught up in some other jobs. Only a few pages away from finishing up a new RoboForce story. I'm excited about that. Unfortunately, I can't live stream it because I do not own the property. I am not at liberty to spoil anything about that comic. I'm also excited about doing some administrative work on my business as a cartoonist, which sounds silly. It's like, why would you get excited about administrative work? But it's something I've been meaning to do for a long time. So I guess it's half excited, half ugh. How did I miss this? Looking at Violet, the Wisp, I think I overworked it a little bit. Not crazy about how that looks, but I like the color. Hey, tree branch is missing. Yes. And even missed some rocks back there. All that's left is the mountains. Is that right? I'm gonna do the mountains, and I'll do like one little quick pass at some of the details on the tree trunks. All right, mountains. What are you gonna be? What color should you be? What color did I do in the digital one? Okay. Okay. Let's see what I did there. Like a lightish purplish, bluish. Okay, that's enough paint, I think. Let's clean off my brush real fast. I'm gonna go in and wet out the mountains. A little tiny bit of paint in there, but that's okay. Drop that paint in, see how it goes. Last little bit. Look around for touch-ups and like getting some more detail to those trees. All right, let's get a little bit of, how about indigo in that? Have I gone over time yet? Yes, I have. Oh, what a drag. Well, I think this is pretty close to being done. Or as done as I'm going to be able to make it. Ah, I missed a piece of grass there. And a tree trunk. I don't have a whole ton of reflections on this yet. Let's see. A pop back recently got back in watercolor painting. This is definitely inspiring. Oh, I'm so glad. Gristle Media. I'm not. There are things I don't like about this, and that is like things that would easily be solved if I just used some masking fluid to like mask around some of the trees. I also think I went in with an image that had too much line detail. I think going forward, I'd probably keep my images simpler if I'm using watercolor on paper. But there is, once again, I'll hold this up. Here's the analog watercolor version. And here is the digital watercolor version. So that was colored in Clip Studio Paint. Managing the shapes and the details was a lot easier in Clip Studio Paint because you can create selections and flats that you select from. Also doing the color holds is a lot easier, but I'm not as happy with the colors. Whereas in this one, I like the colors a lot better, but managing the details is really tough. So I'm going to continue to experiment and play. So today, this is what I used, was the Crayon d'Art Neo Color water soluble, and then my trusty travel watercolor kit. Combination of both of them to do this. And oh, thank you very much, everybody, for the kind words about this. I like the colors a lot. I'm not crazy about like some of the areas where you can clearly see like the white. I would have to spend some time smoothing that out, I think. And then I overworked this area on the tree a little bit, and I overworked the color in there. But I mean, color-wise, I like the image a lot. I'm going to keep playing with different approaches. It was definitely more fun to do it on paper. What kind of brush am I using? This is just like, actually I got this at like Michael's or something. It's just what is it? It's a plastic brush with a water chamber inside of it. And I mean, what is it? It's like plastic bristles. It's not, animal hair bristles. But you can find these in like the craft section at like any crafts or like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. And it's like, they'll come in like a 4-pack of different sizes. And I like using these just because, I do have 2 channels live, Artful Turkey. I'm simulcasting to YouTube, 2 different Twitches, and a Facebook, because I also do a podcast called Lean Into Art, where I talk about like the process of making art. So like there's a couple things I'm not crazy about, but the experience of working on paper was definitely more I enjoyed it more than I did doing the digital watercolors. So there's some trade-offs I got to think about and consider. So, okay, well, wherever you're watching, please consider hitting the like button on the video. It helps more people find these live streams. And, the other details about me are right above my head right now. That's where you can find me on Patreon. That's where you can find everything I do is rss.jdroz.com. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out and watching with me. Until next time, I have been Jersey Droz at jdroz.com, Jersey Droz on Instagram and other places. Okay, bye.